Amen. He is a God who has been faithful. He will be faithful. And there are times when difficult things happen. And we do have an enemy. We all know that. And one of the things that our enemy tries to do is to distract us. And Psalms chapter 46 is where I am tonight. And we need to remember that our God is near. And that's what the psalmist is saying. We don't know exactly the reason or the situation that was happening when the psalmist wrote this psalm. It's very possible that Jerusalem was surrounded by the enemy. And the psalmist penned these words, God is. Isn't that amazing? Present. Not God was, not God will be, God is in the present tense. He goes on to say, God is our. He didn't just say mine, it's an inclusive group. God is our refuge and strength. The refuge is the place of security, the place of safety, the place where nothing can harm me because I have a refuge with my Lord, my God, is what he's saying. And also he says, he's my refuge or our refuge and strength. Have you ever been in need of some strength? I have, folks. And I've always found that when I'm in that moment, God never belittles me, but he gives me the strength that I need. He comes and he will just simply minister and give me the strength that I need to face whatever it is, whatever calamity that may be surrounding me, whatever may be happening. He goes on, listen to what he says. God is near, okay, in verse 1. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in times of trouble, or an ever-present help. He's always there. And from time to time, we do have trouble. We do have difficulty. Your difficulty, your trouble may not be exactly like mine, but we're all going to have trouble from time to time in this life because sin has entered into the world. And because sin has entered into the world, that's why things are happening, because the world is in chaos, because sin has entered into the world. Therefore, in verse 2, we will not fear. Though the earth be moved or removed, and though the mountains be carried into the midst of the sea, though the waters thereof roar and be troubled, though the mountains shake with the swelling thereof. And there's that word, Selah. Y'all remember what I said about Selah? Pause. You know, I don't know a whole lot about music, but musicians tell me there's a pause. There's something in there that indicates to pause. And this is what this means, to pause. Not just pause and take a breath, but pause and think about what you just read. Pause and think about God is our refuge and our strength. Think about that. Dwell on that. He is our help in times of trouble. Think about that. We will not fear. And he goes on, he says, if the earth be no more, if the mountains be carried into the midst of the sea, Though the waters thereof roar and be troubled, though the mountains shake with the swelling thereof. You see, when I look at mountains, I see stability. I understand there's earthquakes, okay? I got enough sense to know that there's earthquakes. But when I look at mountains, I see stability. But what the psalmist is saying is there may be some earthquakes, and it may be a fearful time. If all of that happens, understand that God is. God is with us. He is our strength. When you look at what he talks about here, the mountains being carried into the midst of the sea, the waters thereof roar. That's just a violent wave of the ocean. And he compares it to a river next in verse 4. The difference between the violent waves, possibly from a storm, possibly from the mountains that has just been displaced into the water that has caused this violent wave, he talks about a river. And not one at flood stage either, a quiet river. And he compares that. Usually that is a reference to our God. There is a river, the streams whereof shall make glad the city of God, the holy place of the tabernacles of the Most High. You see, there was not a river that ran through Jerusalem. But he talks about the holy city. And I think that's a reference to the God who he has just referenced, the God who is there, the God who is with him, the God who will strengthen him, and the God who is his help in times of trouble. There's a river, the streams thereof shall make glad the city. God is in the midst of her. In verse 5, she shall not be moved. The difference between the mountain shaking and the place that he's talking about now, because God is there, it's not going to be moved. God shall help her, and that right early. The heathen raged, the kingdoms were moved, he uttered his voice, the earth melted, the Lord of hosts is with us, the God of Jacob is our refuge. There it is again, folks. Present tense, our. All inclusive. And you see, the heathens were raging, the kingdoms were moved, but God was in the midst of her. God shall help her, and that is only going to be for a night. You see, in verses 1 through 3, you can see panic of the heart. But it's only going to be for a night. It's only going to be for a short time. And I understand some people have tried to tell me a child of God is not supposed to fear. Well, if you're human, there's going to be times you're going to be fearful. Okay? May not be but for a fleeting moment. I'll tell you for instance, okay? I was putting some corn out for some deer last year. And I walked back there and I said, something's wrong. There's no birds and there's no squirrels here. So I put the corn out. I was looking all around, put the corn out. And I come back, put some more corn out. And I started to go back to the house and I said, something is wrong. What is wrong? So I turned back around and there was a rattlesnake coiled up about that far from me. Fear struck my heart. He was a pretty little snake. He wasn't but 5.5 foot long. 13 rattles and a button. And when they tanned his hide, you notice I said they. The hide was over 12 inches wide. And the man said, there's your hide. I said, I would rather have my wife. He said, what you talking about? I said, if I bring that thing home, Lisa's leaving, and I would rather have my wife. So you can have that snake hide. there are times whenever fear will grip our hearts, maybe for a moment, but that's our human side of us. But we understand that God is with us. And as I read this, I'm reminded the heathen were raging. You know, sometimes things are said, okay? And we wonder what we should do about that. I'm reminded, this is a paraphrase, okay? This is not King James Version, but it's found in 2 Samuel chapter 16. David, the second king of Israel, he was having a difficult time, and he had to leave the city because Absalom, one of his children, one of his sons, assumed the role of king. And David is on his way out of town. Now, his heart was already low. Had a group of loyal followers with him. And there was a man named Shimei come on the scenes. And you know what old Shimei was doing? He was cursing David and throwing rocks at David. Livingston Parish language is he was giving him a cussing and chunking rocks at him. And there was a guy that was with David, says, King, let me lift off his head. He said, let me cut his head off for you, King. Russell's interpretation of this, okay, because I let my mind wander and my imagination goes wild at times. I could just picture old David if he would have went like this. Old Shimei would have been headless. But you know what David said? Leave him alone. Just leave him alone. Leave him alone. And after David said that, he was still cursing and he was still chunking rocks, and it says he was kicking up dust. Now, my picture is he's on a high hill. Shimei's on a high hill. Not only is he cursing, not only is he chunking rocks, but he's kicking dust on their head. Don't allow yourself to get in the flesh. Allow God to handle it, okay? Just allow God. When the heathens raise, when things are said, understand that God is with us. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. And there that word is again. You see it? Selah. Think about that. Go back and read it again. Think about it. Meditate on it. Think about this God who has always been faithful. The God who is with us will be with us throughout this night, will be with us tomorrow, if there is a tomorrow for us. If there's not a tomorrow for me here, there's a tomorrow for me there, and I will be with him, okay? That's the comfort that we have. And he goes on, he says, come, look, behold the works of the Lord. What desolations he hath made in the earth. He made wars to cease unto the end of the earth. He breaketh the bow and cutteth the spear in sunder. He burneth the chariot in the fire. Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the heathen. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. And there that word is again. Think about that. I want to leave you with 2 or 3 thoughts, and I'm going to be through. Don't let anything or anyone get your focus off. Don't allow your focus to be turned, because if your focus gets off, your focus won't be where God wants it to be. And where does our focus need to be? Our focus needs to be on Him. Our focus needs to be on His power. Our focus needs to be on His plan. And our focus needs to be on His purpose. That's where our focus needs to be. But if our enemy can get us to stop thinking about what God would have us to do in His power, with His plan, and with His purpose, the kingdom's not going to be expanded. And that's what we're to be about, folks. Expanding the kingdom. Allowing God to use us in our gifts, in our abilities, to expand His kingdom. Tell others about what a wonderful God He is, how faithful He has been, and how faithful He is at the moment. And tomorrow, when I get into tomorrow, God is faithful. Already know that. I can say that God is faithful tomorrow. Not will be, but He is. Because tomorrow, God's already there. God is already in tomorrow. Because He's not limited by time and space, folks. He's not. And God is faithful. Don't lose your focus. Don't let anything or anyone cause you to lose your focus and cause you to take a detour. Detours, you know. I always think about New Orleans when I think about detours. No way I can follow a detour in New Orleans. I told y'all about that story, I think. You're going to hear it again. But I was on my way. I needed to make a hospital visit, children's hospital. I could go to two places. I could go to Tulane Medical Center, and I could go to New Orleans Seminary. So I had one of the professors, I told him I needed to go, and I needed directions. And he started rattling off, said, hold it, hold it, hold it. I need to write them down. And I did. But there was a detour. They had the road closed. And I was in this little car, and I turned to take their detour. And I got into a place in New Orleans, and I said, Lord, they will never believe why I'm here if this little car stops. Please don't let this little car break down. But I finally stumbled on the children's hospital. I'm sure the Lord was kind of amused, and He finally directed me to the place. That's what I think about when I think about detours. It can be very detrimental when you take a detour, especially in kingdom work. Keep your focus. Make sure that you're fulfilling God's plan, and keep your focus on His power and His purpose for you. Questions or comments? We have anybody we need to mention tonight? Anyone to put on?